I'm nervous to do this. When I said about geology, what springs into your head? Rocks. I said about rocks. That's good. Yeah, rocks. Soil. Okay. Earth. Okay. Very grounded in that. What about sectors and, in terms of a societal dimension? Because one of the things we're trying to look at is our identity crisis and how we relate to society. So when you think of geology and society, what do you think? Yeah. Mining.
Radioactive waste.
Oh, radioactive waste management. Yeah, there's a killer. Oh, not literally. Sorry. Don't want to. Oh, okay. So the economic and demographic aspects of the challenge. Yes, sir. Environmental degradation. These are good. Yeah. Oil. The elephant in the room, perhaps. Yes. Fracking, which again, energy. We'll see energy coming up. So, yes, we'll take one more.
Yeah, like how it affects the indigenous people.
Yeah.
And how they can protect their resources. Yeah, kind of like that. Now, what it is, it's GIS, they're going into that.
Yeah. So the land that people live in,
yeah,
and the rocks are part of that, but the landscape, the land, and their relationship to that land. Right. Okay. Yes.
Deep history of the Earth.
Ooh.
The planetary formation, conditions of life on our planet.
Yeah, and that, for many geologists, that is a huge part of what we do. And I guess one of our questions is, to what extent is that relevant for the big challenges? And that'll come up repeatedly. So what I'm going to do then is, I'm just going to I've got a few slides. So if you could bring up my presentation just to get us started. And shall I switch to that one, or will it do feedback if I don't? Okay. So, yeah, so I'm Ian Stewart. I'm the El Hassan Research Chair in Sustainability at the Royal Scientific Society in Jordan. And really, for about the last 2 decades, I've been kind of championing the planet, geology, on a global stage, talking about how important geoscience is for society. But really, in the last few years, it's starting to question that whole motivation, along with many others. So I don't know if you know, but across the world, worldwide, recruitment into geoscience is dropping. Numbers are dropping in departments in Australia, in North America, in Europe, in the UK. And one of the things is we don't quite understand why. But it's clearly got something to relate into how individuals relate to this thing that I'm holding, which is the planet, the Earth. What is our relationship with that? And so what we're going to be doing really today is exploring that with you to try and, because we normally speak at geology conferences and everyone then just knows who each other are and we just have a kind of, we're really kind of just talking in a bubble. So this is a really nice opportunity to take our world out and to get a sense of where you think we should be going. So this is our planet. We think about this as this dynamic space that we live in. Life, most of the things that we hear about in the rooms around here takes part in a tiny, thin slither of layer across this very dynamic engine of change that we have in the Earth. So most of geology studies that what you've got in front of you there. So the deep, the Earth's core, the mantle of convection that moves the tectonic plates, and the tectonic plates creates mountains and landscapes. And of course, we then inhabit that, but it also produces earthquakes and volcanoes. It produces mineral resources and other kind of resources. And that's our bag. That's what we do. And for a long while, that's been enough, actually, just to talk about that. But increasingly, it doesn't seem as if that is enough. So in terms of how geoscience, geology, earth science, whatever we want to call it, relates to society, there are some obvious areas. So we provide the materials that the world's cities get built with. So the modern materials that we build with, whether it's glass or steel or concrete, comes from the earth, and that's what geologists go out and find and produce. So as we get into urbanization and smart cities, clearly that is going to be important. Oh, is that me or you? Okay. The mining word came up. Most of those materials come out of some hole in the ground. So we go away and we get those resources from the earth, and mining is still a huge sector within the geoscience world. The far right is an oil platform in the North Sea, but it's actually an oil platform that's been reconfigured for carbon capture storage, which reflects the fact that geoscience, and indeed the whole world, are in an energy transition going from high carbon past towards a low carbon future. And therefore, that is a big challenge for everyone, but particularly for geoscience, that's been wedded very much to hydrocarbon exploration for some time, and that will appear. Water. Clean water, critical element. This is the Ganges in India, but geoscientists know where the water is, the understanding of water, how much we've got, how it gets used, water chemistry, water quality, etc., is very much a geoscience issue. And when we've not got enough, the middle one there, climate change, that's the Owens Valley, Owens Lake, the drying out of many areas, and someone from Jordan, living in Jordan, second most water scarce country in the world, we know all about that. So climate change and impact. And then finally, the environmental degradation, another thing that was mentioned, that's the downside of many of those activities. These are all pretty core aspects of geoscience that relate to society, and which most geoscience departments around the world embrace. Our question, well, I'll come to the question at the end, but it's about the wider social relevance of geoscience. So here we have one of the most beautiful places on the planet. This is the Altiplano of Bolivia, a UNESCO site. It's the most stunning physical location. And parked right in front of it is that ugly petrol-driven car, that internal combustion engine car. And if the world is to move to this renewable future, as we move there, we're going to need minerals like lithium to produce the electricity. Well, that place there has got 30% of the world's lithium reserves. So the likelihood is that as we move to the low-carbon future, we're going to have to dig this up in some way. Or are we? Where are the ethical and moral aspects about how much where we place value? And that's a really difficult one. And just on that, he died recently, but Herman Daly, the former chief economist at the World Bank, had this Daly's triangle, where he talked about the importance of everything, the whole economy, resting on the ultimate means, which is the natural capital of the sun, the biosphere, raw materials. And that ultimate means is what feeds, it gets converted through science and technology to produce stuff, the things that we use, factories, labor, tools. And that then gets changed by the political economy into wealth, into provisioning services, health, leisure, communications, the kind of modern world that we live in. And an assumption around financial maximization. But what Herman Daly said is the economy is not about profit maximization and wealth creation for the sake of it, because there's a top to it, which is the ultimate end, which is about us, about people, about what we want, well-being, a quality of life, etc. And so this is the notion of the well-being economy that's coming through. So really all of this underpins this notion of how is it that geoscience can push beyond just providing stuff, in other words, feeding into, if I just go back for a second, this is the economy, so the circular economy, sustainable economy, efficiency of business, etc., which we involve ourselves in. How can we push past that into the ultimate ends? How can geoscience help deliver long-term well-being for all? And ironically, in 1788, who's referred to as the father of modern geology, James Hutton, had that quote saying, "This globe of the earth is a habitable world, and on its fitness for this purpose, our sense of wisdom must depend." In other words, right from the start of modern geology, there's been a sense of purpose, that it's about the habitability and well-being of the people on this kind of planet. And that's really the issues that we want to bring out with us today. So as I say, I've very quickly introduced the panel, but that's it from me. And what we're going to do now is we're going to hear 4 different provocations about different perspectives on the problem. And then we'll bring everyone up, and then we'll open it out for you guys, and we can have a discussion. So, Kombada, do you want to take the stage?
Good morning. I'm from the Namibian Geological Survey, and I'm going to give a brief background on how we are making a difference to society in Namibia. So as introduced, I'm from the Geological Survey of Namibia, and we are the custodians of national geoscience data. And in the same vein, I wear 2 hats, and I also work at the United Nations Science Organization, UNESCO, where I lead the science program. And through this Geoparks program, which meets the two jobs, we try to promote the conservation of the geoheritage. So next slide, please. Oh. So, what is geoparks? This is internationally recognized significant geological heritage. So most people are used to the concept of national parks where you preserve diverse animals and plants. There's also a concept of conserving the geosciences. Rocks, amazingly, are also vulnerable. There are some rocks that form beautiful landscapes and are unique and significant and have some history behind them. And there's been this international move to conserve those rocks that we all appreciate without knowing what's happening. And there has to be cultural heritage behind it, historical significance. And here I have, this is a picture of the Minister of Mines and Energy in 2004. There was a workshop that UNESCO supported at the Geological Survey of Namibia. And during that time, it was decided that Namibia wanted to be part of the Geopark initiative. And I have the map here. Sorry about that. I have the map here of Namibia, and this blue area shows the area where we decided that the proposed geopark should be there. And that was basically an area of Namibia that has several significant geological sites. Namibia, by the way, is a paradise for geologists. We don't have much vegetation, but we have a lot of beautiful rocks. And the thing that they decided to conserve was these beautiful geological attractions, which include Brandberg, the highest mountain, Namibia, organ pipes, our beautiful scenery in the desert. That area represents the complete history of, I don't know how many of you watched Ice Age? Yes. So in Ice Age, there's that scenario where the continents are coming together and breaking apart. So the Earth's history, there was a massive landmass called Gondwana land. That was about 650 million years ago. It's true. Geologists have measured this. And in that landmass, that time Namibia and Brazil were together. And this area where these geological attractions come from represent a complete history of the time when the Earth, Namibia was part of this Gondwana land continent, and when it broke apart to the present day form of the Earth. And all these geological attractions which represent magmatic rocks, that's rocks from magma, and they have beautiful history for the area, and they are main tourist attractions in the area. And some of the sites also have an appeal artistically, you know, aesthetically, they look good. We also have landforms such as the stunning coastline meeting the Atlantic Ocean, the Namib Desert, which is a very beautiful desert, and also deltas and rivers, ephemeral rivers. And apart from the rocks, the geology, we also are well known for semi-precious stones. A variety of them. We have a thriving small-scale mining population. Part of the geoparks is to have sustainable development centered around the conservation of geology. And the communities have a rich history of mining these semi-precious stones. And the other component of geoparks is the heritage, the cultural aspects. So we have a famous rock art, it's called White Lady, the Petrified Forest, and the area already has a World Heritage Site, a cultural one, in Teufelsfontein, where we have beautiful rock art, and we have renowned fossils, such as this creature that is found both sides in Namibia and in Brazil, another evidence that the continents were once joined. And we have diverse historical stories that are centered around that part of the world. We have our renowned Welwitschia mirabilis, which is a very old plant that lives up to 1,000 years. And then we have the unique flora and fauna that have adjusted to the desert landscape. Here's a desert giraffe. This is a frog, lizard, just unique to that area and don't survive elsewhere in the country. So the geopark is a complete package and requires engagement with the communities, is a way to support sustainable development, reaching out to the goals. And right now we have been working in partnership with several government partners with financial support from UNESCO, from the Namibian government, and from the German government to make sure that we get it through the line. So thank you very much for your attention, but this is how we are pushing social justice in Namibia.
Elena, do you want to take the stage?
Okay, my name is Munira Raji. Yeah, shorter, sorry. Yeah, I guess before I start this, I will just sort of tell you briefly why I'm into geoscience diplomacy. I really like that somebody, I think this guy over there with white shirt, talked about fracking. So and someone else talked about oil and gas. My bachelor and master was in petroleum geoscience, and then I did a PhD in fracking. And said suddenly fracking was bad for the planet. And so I had to think of something. I had to transition into something that would benefit society. And so I did a course in science diplomacy. And somehow in between that, I decided to focus on geoscience diplomacy. And so I'm going to talk to you briefly about geoscience diplomacy now. Okay, it's supposed to be a video. So globalization means we are very much connected now, more than ever before. And geoscientists are connected everywhere. Like you can, I've collaborated with most of these panelists here because we've met online. We've been able to do a project together. So globalization has really helped us to stay connected. Globalization has helped to build collaboration, to build international relationship and partnership, and to do like mutual projects. Okay, next. Okay, so I'll just talk briefly about some of the global geoscience challenges that we have. Professor Stewart has mentioned some of that already, but I'll talk about climate change. Some of the global geoscience challenges are climate change, global warming, environmental degradation and pollution, resource depletion, biodiversity, habitat loss, energy security. We all know about the recent energy crisis in Russia, in Europe, from the war between Russia and Ukraine. The drought and water security, geological hazard that include volcanic eruption, earthquake, and flooding, and different sort of like landslide as well. And then radioactive waste. Somebody mentioned radioactive waste storage and disposal. That's really important. So these are all the global geoscience challenges that we have. And so we are best geoscientists because we understand this. We study the subsurface, we study the planet, we study the climate. So we understand all of these challenges, and we are best fit to solve these global challenges. And so, next slide, yeah. And so that brings the idea of geoscience diplomacy. No nation or no country or even region can solve all of these global challenges. So, because some of these global challenges transcend geological, sorry, I need to take a deep breath. Yeah, some of these global challenges I mentioned earlier transcend national borders and regional borders. So we need to work together as geoscientists from different countries to solve these global challenges. And even that could even lead to a lot of new discovery for the benefit of the society. So that brings me to geoscience diplomacy, which is the international exchange of scientific knowledge and technology between geoscientists from different countries and different regions. And so geoscience, technology, and diplomacy all play an essential role in solving some of the global challenges that we have. Okay, so I'll just give you a very good example of geoscience diplomacy. They don't call it geoscience diplomacy, but they call it international collaboration between geoscientists and researchers from different countries. UNESCO, it's a very good example of that. UNESCO works with IGCP and IUGS to fund a lot of research around geoscience, issues and solve a lot of geoscience problem. And they work around themes like air resources, that's the knowledge of our natural resources to sustain our society. So we need our minerals to transition into renewable energy. We need to understand the global climate change. We need to understand the geohazard and risk and how to mitigate all of these geohazards. We need to understand that. And we need to understand the geodynamic of our planet. So understanding the process that happens deep within our subsurface. And then hydrogeology, of course, which is very important. We need water. So we need to understand the water cycle and its sustainability and how to get water to countries that don't have access to clean water. We need to understand geoheritage. My colleague just now talked about geoheritage, which is very good. We need to preserve our geopark, our geoheritage, and understand how to conserve our environment. And so another form of diplomacy that I really like is the climate change diplomacy, which is the diplomacy where countries from different people from different countries come together to talk about how to mitigate the impacts of climate change, which is one of the representative of this. One of the UN intergovernmental climate change body that sort of study climate data and sort of provide on science policy and science solutions to mitigate climate change is the IPCC. Sorry, can I say that? Yeah. IPCC. And so they help us study our climate and give us solutions to be able to solve our climate change problem. So, and because climate change has specific implications on global energy security, food security, water security, biodiversity, and natural resources and environment, and even our ocean. So there's a lot of people working around ocean diplomacy as well. So all of these global challenges needs to be addressed at international level. And so it's important for geoscientists to come together, working in different countries to come together to be able to solve these challenges here. Okay, so another important diplomacy that I really like is the water diplomacy. The flow of our shared water resources transcend different borders. Shared water resources are across different countries, and so transboundary water management, which is the principle of finding the use of water, managing the governance and protection of water resources, prevent conflicts and maintain ecological sustainability. So water resources is at the heart of international peace and security. And so water diplomacy involves the development of cooperation between different nations on shared water resources, and that could contribute to their joint benefit, peace, stability, and economic development. And so, just to conclude, so basically what I'm trying to say is geoscience diplomacy can be crucial behind international geoscience research program in helping us to solve a lot of the global challenges that we have. And so it requires the involvement of geoscientists. So it's not just geoscience organization or geoscience institution or even the government. Individual geoscientists can help solve this problem. A lot of times we collaborate with other researchers from different countries without even having funding to do projects. So any geoscientist can be involved in geoscience diplomacy by initiating partnership between different geoscientists from other countries. And so geoscience diplomacy sort of provide a neutral environment for the free exchange of ideas between geoscientists. And it also transcends cultural, national, continental, and regional boundaries, because this is the global challenges that we have, and we have to solve that. No country can solve this alone. So thank you. That's
Hello, everybody. On. Is it on? Yes, thank you. So while we get the right slides, okay, not too high. Okay. Thank you. So these are the right slides, and I like that Ian introduced us about different perspectives, because I want to bring to you, which might be a perspective that I develop for you today, for the topic of this session, okay, which is geoscience for humanitarian development, for human development. So let's see. I want to tell you about what is that relation of geoscience and geoethics for sustainability. And let's start with this vision. With, when we think about geology, somebody said at the beginning, it is about rocks. Yes, it's about rocks. But let's see, how do we finish after we see some examples of what we can do with our superpower? Because geoscientists have superpowers. The problem is not everybody knows that. So our narrative starts very well. You may agree with me that every single kid, boy or girl, even us, we can still remember how we were fascinated by the very concept of dinosaurs. And when you click dinosaur in Google, you get millions of searches and responses. That is a fantastic story. That is a fantastic, appealing thing. But what happened afterwards? That then, not many people know about geoscience. So when we are grown-ups, we only hear about geoscience, unfortunately, when there is an earthquake, when there is a volcano. Now we have the Mauna Loa, right? Again, active. But we don't hear again about geoscience, and we should be part of the decision-making process. And this is my proposal today for you. So geoscientists are not always part of that decision-making table, right? And we instead have what I propose, we have a privileged view. When other people say, the geologic time, and they think about millions of years, for us, it's our everyday work. So this perspective of the planet as a holistic unit that is interconnected, that we understand fully, is not everybody's job. And that is why geoscientists are called to the equation of solutions. We cannot find solutions without a geoscientist. So let me show you some examples. One day I was searching for images of Kuwait, where I was living, and aerial photos, and I found this one. I couldn't believe it. Do you know what is this? Yes. So in Kuwait, there is a cemetery of tires. This is an aerial view of that. And that's not only in Kuwait. The thing is that it's hidden to our eyes. So what can we do? And this is our trigger about doing something for the progress and for the sustainable development. And you mentioned, well, we go renewables. Well, this is the same image for the wind turbines, which has been discarded. Okay? This is in Wyoming, the United States. The thing is that we don't know these things exist. So, what is geoethics? So, I bring to you the following. Geoethics is exactly how do we apply our discipline. And I think that in geology we also have that. So, as you know, everybody knows about the medical ethics. Haven't you heard about that? Well, every single person today, when we go out from here, we need to know there is a geoethics as well. As geoscientists, we also have geoethics. So geoethics may help redefine the approaches we have about, our collective awareness, the human awareness about what we can do with geology and contribute to the pursuit of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. So let me show you 4 examples very quickly, okay? First one, I want to show you a case of geoethics. What is that? Well, many times, like every ethical dilemma, it's easy when you have to decide between good and bad. We decide good, right? Between good and wrong. But what happens if you have 2 good things? And that is what happened in Lo Hueco in Spain. They were constructing a new railroad. That's good. But they found dinosaurs and a lot of fossils. What should they do? They should continue the construction or they should preserve the fossils? So that is the ethical and geoethical dilemma when you have 2 good things, right, for the community. So they decided to redesign, in another way, the railroad and keep the fossils. Alhamdulillah. Case 2. The purity of water in Vienna, Austria. Well, what to do, what not to do with so many tourists in the glaciers, right, in the mountains? Well, they decided to keep the tourism, but have all the water treated because they brag about their purity of the water. Case number 3, my own country, Italy. They put in jail 6 geophysicists because they couldn't predict an earthquake. So when you work in geoscience, you know that cannot be actually predicted. And this impacted the way politicians and everybody else were looking at geoscientists. And a beautiful example from Latin America, and this is in Chile. In the Atacama Desert, which I think challenges the beauty of the Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia, this has been exposed for so long that is like a mine for meteorites. And people were going from all over the world to pick up meteorites. Well, in Chile, geoscientists get together and they have what I think is the only geoheritage law issued by their congresspersons. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? And the final case is one movie, a recent movie. You may have seen it. It's called Look Up. I saw it because it was with Leonardo DiCaprio. And the thing is that Leonardo DiCaprio is a geoscientist. How cool is that? And he warns the President of the United States, which, by the way, is a woman, that Meryl Streep, that a giant meteorite is going to impact the Earth. The whole point of the movie is nobody believed the scientists. Nobody believed the scientists. So how close are we in our narrative, okay, going to my initial point about making our point? So beyond geoethical values that you can find in the internet, the sustainability concept is to preserve what we have for the future, right? So flying to the slides, I will now take a few minutes to just raise the collective awareness that we are here, and for those who are kindly listening to us in the streaming, that I was fortunate enough to lead a team of 12 very recognized scientists. 2 of them are here with us, Dr. Ian and Dr. Combada. And we put together an atlas, I would call it, of a compilation of examples that is going to be co-published by the UNESCO and the AGU, which is the American Geophysical Union. This atlas compiles a series of examples, and what we want to do is to share, to elevate the awareness, to establish a platform of communication, to show with practical examples how do we advance the Sustainable Development Goals. How do geoscientists apply their magic, their knowledge, and their privileged perspective to help all of us into sustainability? So this atlas will soon be published, and these are some of the communication flyers that we established with them, okay? And all my dear co-authors that we put together this piece of work. It took us more than I think almost 2 years, 1.5 years to put this together. And we created this wheel in which you can see each of the SDGs. What do geoscientists do to advance that particular SDGs? Combada was telling us about the scarcity of water, SDG 7. What do we do for that, right? SDG 12, 13, climate change, each one of them. So this wheel is a summary of what we can do. And the wheel is like a mirror. We can see ourselves there, and no matter what you do for your work, you will find yourself there. That is the beauty of this. So we have global examples from all over the world, by the way, also from Namibia in particular, but from all over the place. And this is one of the examples that we propose. And I want my little summary to tell you that, yes, we are provocative about that, and the idea is to map what we do for people, planet, and prosperity. So this is the wheel, and this is the summary that I bring to you. To finalize, we also show examples about energy, and which is SDG 7 and 13. With that, I would like to finalize my intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. And finally, our local contributor, Dr. Presidency.
Okay. Yeah, I'm short. I need extension. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Cape Town, if you are not from here. I'm Hasina Mori, as Ian introduced me. I'm from University of Johannesburg, so I'm one of the locals. As I was introduced earlier, I'm Vice President of the International Union of Geological Science, but I'm also holding a UNESCO chair in medical geology in Africa. I'm also a council member of the IGCP program that Munira mentioned about earlier. So I'm mentioning all this to you in case you are interested to discuss about these various organizations. You are most welcome to contact me later. So what I'm going to talk about is an exotic topic that you probably think, what is this about? So I believe that in order to achieve the goals of social justice, it is very important to address the environmental injustice. And geoscientists can play a very important role in this aspect, not just by looking at the rocks, as we heard earlier, or mining, looking for minerals, natural resources, energy, and so on, but also about the environmental challenges, which I call environmental injustice. Someone mentioned earlier about environmental degradation, which can cause serious health issues to the population. So geoscientists' role is important in understanding the sources and the causes of a number of health issues that are affecting especially the poor countries. As the proverb says, if you want to kill a snake, you must target the head. So we need to look at the sources of the problems and not just remediate or treat the cause, the symptoms of the diseases. So this is what I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes. Before I start with my talk about medical geology, let me just go through the concept of environmental justice as defined by the US Environmental Protection Agency, which says environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. And in order to achieve these goals, we need to have the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards, equal access to decision-making processes, and to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work. However, these goals are yet to be achieved, because if we look at the World Health Organization reports, we can see that the most common leading to death causes are health issues, which are the non-communicable diseases, are all caused by, partly by the environmental factors. But the exact causes are still not known. About 15 million of people each year die from these 5 diseases. Over 85% of these premature deaths between the age of 30 and 69, they are occurring in middle-income countries. Example, Africa. Remember this word, middle or low-income countries. I will come to this at a later stage. Now, as part of the environment, we have the geo-environment. This geo-environment that Munira mentioned about in her presentation as GeoScience challenges, global challenges, here I call them geo-environmental challenges, factors, processes, materials, they cause widespread of severe diseases and health problems that are affecting millions of people all around the world. However, very little attention is paid to these problems and their causes, contrary to the most common non-communicable diseases, which are all around in the reports of the World Health Organization. So I give you some examples. Fluorosis, which is caused by either excess or deficiency of fluorine, affects millions of people in Africa, especially in East Africa. And that's due to the nature of volcanism in that area. It's alkaline, enriched in fluorine. Iodine, selenium issues, deficiency or excess, same, affects millions of people in Africa. Nigeria is a very good example. Algeria, where I come from, is a very good example. This deficiency of or excess of the specific elements that comes from the geo-environment causes thyroid disorder. The thyroid disorder does not just impact the thyroid itself. It goes beyond to that. It causes Alzheimer's. It causes cardiovascular diseases, and so on. Podoconiosis, which is a typical disease in Africa, especially in East Africa. Lead poisoning, which causes kidney and brain damage, very common in Africa. You can see from this chart the statistics, the countries of low income that I was referring to earlier. So, in addition to that, there are other health issues that are on the rise, and they are part of the public health. For example, the black lung disease, which is on the rise in Central Appalachia. For example, you can see on this graph here, which is the stats of 2015, it's going up, okay? So the environmental injustice is still there. The silicosis in India, it's going up because people break rocks, they inhale crystalline quartz, they develop the disease. Mostly because they are not aware of the health consequences of such activities. The geo-environmental causes that are responsible for these health issues are a number of them. I will just refer to volcanic eruptions in East Africa, for example. Water toxicity due to interaction between rocks and water. So whatever you have in water comes from the bedrock geology. I'm sure you are all aware of the arsenic disaster in Bangladesh, which is coming from sedimentary bedrock geology. Droughts, floods, dust storms. Dust, what is dust? Is nanoparticles of material that resulted from weathering of the rocks. So depending on the composition, the mineralogy and geochemistry of the rocks, you have that in your dust, and if you inhale it, you develop a specific disease. And of course, I forgot to mention about some toxic minerals. You can see here these three pictures, beautiful minerals. Fibrous minerals, arsenopyrite, cinnabar. These minerals contain toxic elements in their composition, and if released into the environment, they cause terrible health problems. In addition to that, of course, we cannot deny the anthropogenic activities, industrialization, automobiles, emissions, forest fires, and synthetic fertilizers. Moreover, what complicates the situation further? Mining activities is one example. You all know Africa is rich in terms of its natural and mineral resources, yet Africans are poor. Is this just? Is this not injustice? So where is science here? So we need, geoscientists need to play an important role, not just to look for minerals for the economic development, but for the well-being of those communities that are neglected. Climate and geomorphology. Most parts of Africa are arid, semi-arid, lacking essential elements for the well-being of the population. That is very important. And then, of course, the socioeconomic challenges. Most of the people that are affected by these health issues, they live in rural areas. They rely mostly on water they get in their surrounding environment, which is not controlled. They rely on the food grown in their gardens, depending on the soil composition. And they have no political power. They have no knowledge to understand what is around them. Those are the people that we need to look after. The consequences of such geo-environmental injustice is huge. I just mentioned two here, but that's not all. There is a severe impact on the well-being of the population. Population don't die because of fluorosis, okay? But they are incapable to work. And if they can't work, what does that mean? They become poor. okay, and a burden to their community. That enhances poverty. Another issue, very important in Africa, I stress on Africa because this event is about social justice, and it's happening for the first time in Africa. So my presentation is a call for help for the Africans that I'm referring to in this presentation. What is happening is the talented people in Africa are targeted by the non-African countries. They were given bursaries, they go away. They study somewhere, they never come back. What is happening to Africa? Monira is a good example. I'm a good example. I left Algeria, but luckily I'm in South Africa. And so many cases like this of people who are leaving their continent because of the conditions of living. And what is the result of that? We empty the continent. That's why I go back to that first issue that I mentioned, Africa is rich, but Africans are poor. It's a consequence of that. So there is a serious impact on the socio-economic developments of the continent. So, what is medical geology in brief, and how can we help, or what is the role in the context of the environmental justice? So medical geology is an emerging field of science that deals with understanding the sources of a number of health issues, okay? And geoscientists, through this discipline and research programs in this discipline and training of postgraduate students, have the obligation to help protect the health of those people disadvantaged that I was referring to earlier. But how? Through multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary research, bringing together scientists from all disciplines. Monira mentioned about partnership, inter-nations partnership. I go a step further saying partnership interdisciplinary, because that's the only way that we can understand the problems. If we don't understand the causes, we won't be able to remediate the consequences. And finally, we cannot talk about social justice without referring to SDGs, because SDGs are the roadmap to social justice. And through research in medical geology, we can address a number of social SDGs. For example, the identification of toxic elements in the environment is contributing to the well-being of the communities. That's SDG number 3. Education. In my opinion, education is not just going to school, which is our right. Education is how can we translate our research into a language that those people in rural areas who do not have any background, university background, can understand the danger around them. That can be done through community engagement. As part of our research, we need to integrate that. Then, quality of education, gender issue, the perception of geology, or the wrong association of geology to mining, hence man field, it's a scary topic for most females. They are scared to do geology because they are worried that they end up just like men working in the ground. I was one of them when I was a student. So bringing geomedical aspect or component into geology, that might change the perception and bring in more females into the higher education sector and geoscience sectors in general. Then, of course, we all know about the demands of clean water and clean energy. Colleagues mentioned about that. if we don't know about the composition of water or the composition of coal, then people will be affected by that. So geoscientists can make an important contribution to that. And then, of course, partnership, I mentioned about it earlier, which is the nature of medical geology, a multidisciplinary field. So just some concluding remarks. We can't really conclude on this topic because it's a debate. But what I would like to say is, I repeat that it's important to educate communities about their environment. It's important to consider and support concerns by impacted communities and provide help when possible. It's important to collaborate with experts. It's time to expand geoscience into other disciplines and don't continue with the curriculum where we just study geology in boxes. So we need to introduce our students into other aspects or integrate geology with other disciplines, including social science, for example. And then, of course, mining with conscience and clear plans for remediation. We need minerals, we need energy, but we need to think about the impact. And then, of course, hold those who do not adhere to the environmental justice accountable. They need to pay for that. And finally, provide fundings for training of postgraduate students and research in relevant fields that have impact on society, such as the medical geology, and convince, I wish if we have some decision makers in this room here, to convince them that change is to their benefit. Don't be scared to open geoscience for other aspects. Support it, support the initiatives. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, so the plan now is if I invite the panelists up, and then we're going to throw it open to you guys to kind of have a discussion. As we do that, I just wanted to ask the panelists one question as they get up, which is what I said about how odd geology is. We're a weird bunch, but how did we get into it? So let's go, Kambada, how did you get into this weird space of geology? Oh, so here you go. You take that, and I'll take this one.
Thank you. Thank you. I had an unorthodox journey into geology. I actually didn't plan to do it in the beginning. My father was a geoscientist, and I thought, I don't want to be like my dad. It's not so cool. He was a metallurgist, but it's the same field. And I thought I wanted to be like Bill Gates, and I enrolled into computer science, undergrad. I was doing programming, and everything was going well, but I was not enjoying spending a lot of time programming and coding on the computer. And you know, young people, I was 18 and volatile. I wanted to live life. And then in my second year, a friend of mine was like, oh, I'm registering for geology. I'm like, really? Yeah. And you know what? You get to travel around Namibia, and we get to braai, which is our equivalent of putting a lot of meat on coals and having a good time. So I was like, that's a good deal. I'll join you in geology. So that's how I ended up in geology. Meat and travel.
You joined geology to eat meat?
Yes.
Wow, okay. Munira. Beat that.
Oh, that's really funny. Okay, my own story is a bit different. I'm originally from Nigeria. And so when I was I think 8 years old, some geologists were sent to my village to map some sedimentary rock around my area. And so they stayed in my house. And so each day they come back in the evening and come back with rocks. And I was just curious. I just wanted to know what that is. And then I was told that about how you can use this simple small rock to understand the planet, the mountain building, and that this sort of rock can actually turn into fossil fuel that we use to power our economy, and that really got my interest. And so I just started collecting rocks. I didn't know what they were. I was just collecting. I remember they used to call me. It's like a phrase. I said, "Crazy rock girl." Like that's what they called me back then. And so that was how I got interested in. And then I went to secondary school. I did science, and then I've done like 3 degrees in geology. So I've always wanted to be a geologist. So
Fantastic.
yeah, that's
Thank
my
you.
story.
Maria Angela, what's your story?
Well, my story, I was studying physics. And immersing all these mathematics and Maxwell equations and stuff, we were obliged to take electives. And I took one that was geophysics. And the very first thing we did is we went on a field trip nearby the university, and the geologist explained, the outcrop. And I was mesmerized. I couldn't see rocks the same way ever again. For me, it was a fascination. It was a discovery. That was my journey. It started that day, and still today,
Yeah.
I am discovering.
I had a colleague who, when the very first field trip we take, he stands them in front of a cliff and he says, "Look at that cliff." And he gets them to stare at the cliff for about 5 minutes. And he says, "Right, now you're never going to see a cliff in the same way ever again." There's like a hiatus, a threshold in your life. Hasina, finally.
Thank you. Thanks, Ian. Well, for me, it was more, let's say, I was born in a place in Algeria that looks like Cape Town. I call it actually Cape Town of North Africa, surrounded by mountains, rivers, the sea, and so on. So I was always curious about that beautiful landscape around me. But at the same time, I wanted to satisfy the family or the general concept or perception of people that females must specialize in health or education. That was the perception at that time. So being a geologist was odd. However, when the time came that I need to choose between geology and health, I opted rather for geology because, as I was telling to my colleagues last night, that if I see someone dying in front of me, I will die before that person. So being a doctor doesn't help the patient. So I had to opt for something more that doesn't die. Rocks don't die, although they do to some extent. But that health stayed in my head, and it was a matter of time that I need to bring it in. And thank God, with the discovery of medical geology, I could achieve that dream of childhood.
Yeah.
So it is possible to combine the two.
Thank you. So what we've had is a number of issues that's come up that actually are very familiar to the discussion rooms around here. We've heard about justice, ethics, we've heard about heritage, we've heard about diplomacy, but these are not things you would hear about in a normal geology conference, and those geologists in the room can know that. So what I'd like to do now is throw it open to the floor and to have any comments or questions that people have. So there's one there. I'm just going to run around, and so please, if you might be able to say who you are, that'd be useful, and then.
Hello, everybody. My name is Professor Rahil Kamar. I am from ISESCO in Morocco. One thing I've always wondered, that we are sitting on a very high source of energy, Earth, but why have we not been able to exploit geothermal energy for energy purposes? Is it a technological issue, or is it an ethical issue, or what sort of an issue is it that we are not exploiting this huge amount of energy which is sitting inside the Earth?
Maybe Munira and Maria Angela could talk to that one.
Okay, we are now exploring the geothermal energy. And why we didn't do it before? Probably because, to tell you the truth, it was cheaper and more affordable to use oil and gas. And before that, coal. And before that, wood. But have we discarded all this? No. We are still using wood, coal, oil and gas. We are now adding to the basket geothermal, wind, and solar energy. In geothermal, that gives me the great opportunity to also share with the audience the idea that in order to benefit better from energy sources, we need to think beyond what is the city limits, the country limits, and seek collaboration, cooperation for expanding the solutions. And for geothermal, Kenya, which is in the continental rift, it has a huge potential for geothermal energy, because you know that Africa will be divided in two eventually in millions of years. It's not going to happen tomorrow. But Kenya alone could have not developed the resource for geothermal, but it was thanks to the understanding that they could have electricity, distribution for Zambia and for other countries, that investors came and developed one of the biggest electricity power plants that are fueled by geothermal. But also in Norway, the whole airport in Norway is now powered by geothermal. So you will see more and more coming into the equation, geothermal. And who are the best engineers and scientific to do that? Geoscientists, and by the way, petroleum engineers, because they are the ones with the skills to drill and to produce that. Thank you for the question. It's a very clever question.
Does Manira, you get a comment on that?
I mean, I think you've answered all the you've answered the question, but my own comment is a bit maybe controversial, but I can say that because I'm African. There's a lot of research around geothermal energy in other countries in Europe, but in Africa, there's just limited research on that. And this is one of the reasons why I keep talking about collaborating, having partnership, knowledge transfer, technology transfer. Nigeria, for example, has huge potential, just like Kenya, but the Nigerian government just keep getting foreign aid to do renewable energy, but they don't sort of allocate any funding towards doing research around development of geothermal energy. So that needs to change if we really need to explore our natural resources in Africa.
There's a question over here.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Ian, for an intriguing session. My name is Rula Kalyubi, and I'm with the United Nations Environment Program. And my duty station is in Kenya, and I can relate to the thermal factories right in the Rift Valley. Excuse me. This is most intriguing, and I have to say, I learned today. This is my third day in the conference, and I learned the last two sessions has been amazing. Solutions come in common language, dollars and cents. And so a unifying, and I'm glad, Munira, that you mentioned social science, because you need economists to work with you on quantification of the environmental damages, not just in terms of human value and human income. And when dollar cents are quantified, when the damage is quantified, governments start listening. When you say, this is what we lost in terms of GDP productivity, there where it comes. Short of this, the science, looking at the drivers, looking at the source, trying to appeal to policy making and linking that policy for impactful change happens only when you connect with. And we have tools in economics. Even though I am scientist by heart, but I am an economist. So environmental economics provided impact assessment framework that can be used. And I know many institutions that I can link you up with to that effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone, yeah, thank you. I don't know if Hasina or Kumbada want to particularly come back on that. I mean, you've both mentioned the importance of interdisciplinary and social science and things like that, but...
I can only agree. I mean, yes, I mentioned briefly, thank you very much, that's an excellent comment. I mentioned briefly about social science because if we really have to address all, we need like 3 hours of talk. But I fully agree with you. If we translate the damage into money, then the eyes will open. And I appreciate your offer to help. I will definitely link with you. Thank you very much.
I think there's a question.
Can I
Oh, yeah, of course,
just add something? I would like to challenge the audience with one provocative thought. I don't remember your name. Rula Kalyudi. Rula, you studied economy, but we all have the privilege, all of us, that in our primary school we have to study mathematics, arithmetic, algebra, and all that. Why we don't have earth sciences and geosciences? So it's so important that I think should be part of elementary studies.
Okay.
Thank you.
Question here.
I don't know if this will end up being a question or comment. So I'll just say that, yes, Dr. Meunier, cross multiple disciplinary collaborations are very important for understanding the issues, but it is also important to engage with students in engineering as well as students in computer sciences, so that through learning about the problems, we are able to create innovations to address those problems. And this goes directly to the case study that you presented where they could not predict earthquake. So how about in university, Dr. Meunier, how about we change maybe the syllabus, maybe have an economist learn geography so that they can learn terms like geoscience, diplomacy, geoethics, geoenvironmental issues, you know. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration, and the government needs to sit down and really recreate the way of learning, because at the end of the day, this is geography and everything is connected. We need to find a way where we can see things not just in a narrow eye view, but we see across all borders.
Can we give you an applause?
Yeah, lots of nods on the panel there. I think you've got general agreement to that one about finding a way. Does anyone want to talk about how we might find a way?
Can I just
Yeah, and then you, sir.
Thank you so much for that. I'm glad to hear it from a young generation because you are the future. That's exactly what I was referring to, knowledge integration, okay? Geology in the context of other disciplines. How can it, you know, be integrated into computer science or computer science into geology and so on? And that's what I was saying. It's time to open geoscience and stop studying the curriculum in boxes as it has been done for my generation and Ian's and others. Now, we have to open that. We have to change the curriculum, revise it exactly in the way you are saying. Thank you very much.
I want to share that the Oklahoma State University Boone Pickens School of Geology contacted me to revamp their syllabi. And for me, it has been an extraordinary experience to liaise with the faculty and challenge them to open the mind, not to just teach about, for example, refraction seismic, but for what they can use that. So that once the faculty understands this and open their mind, they will be able to challenge the students to do more with geoscience.
This is going to have to be the last question, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much. I am David Ba from the Cameroon Academy of Sciences. The topic, I've been involved in talking with young scientists, particularly from geological and mining research. And they tell me that they have a real problem here. They can acquire all the knowledge in there, in areas like petroleum or that, they cannot have access to job opportunities in there. They said those job opportunities are not available for them, but they are available for others from outside. Are there limitations from what some of the experts have studied that this happens in the geoscience programs and the industries?
Yeah, I wonder, Kambada, do you want to say something about that integration and that, parachute kind of science from elsewhere?
Yeah, thank you. I will put my government hat on. So I think just like in academia, the government geological surveys still follow the old geology model. And as you mentioned, this knowledge that the graduates acquire, sometimes the government departments, especially I can talk about Namibia, have not caught up with these new fields. And I think when it comes to the education, for instance, in Namibia, and the employment opportunities, sometimes the synergy is not there. Sometimes you might have more graduates than there's jobs, and what they studied sometimes we cannot accommodate in the government. And I think this transformation that my colleagues mentioned does not only need to come to the education sector, but also in the government. Our wheels are turning slowly. Unfortunately, the bureaucracy is what it is, and when you want to reconfigure the departments to move away from the traditional fields of petroleum, igneous, regional mapping, geochemistry, and you want to make it more integrated. So I think this will take time, but this is my first World Science Forum, and it's my first time attending a conference as a scientist where I'm in touch with policymakers. And I think, for instance, in Namibia, in the government, we have a lot of scientists in senior positions. We were trained in the science program, but we were not trained to engage policymakers. And this is a gap that is there, and those challenges that you are mentioning can be addressed by if we have an intermediary that helps us to translate our impact. As mentioned, the numbers, I mean, I know how to quantify the science, but to quantify the economics and to really present to the politicians to say, we have these graduates, we have people studying, the world is moving now to this green hydrogen, to geothermal. How can we accommodate? Like at my geological survey, if you have a degree in geothermal, we cannot give you a job, because it doesn't exist in our structure. So I think there's a gap to address.
Very, very quickly, and then I'll close up.
I just want to make a brief comment. So last year, me and some of my colleagues back in the UK, we did a project with some Kenya geoscientists, and we tried to map the geoscience, the new geoscience scale into the SDGs to sort of understand what sort of skills do you need for today's workforce. And so we went through all the Kenya universities, what sort of courses they teach, geoscience courses they teach, and what sort of modules. And then we evaluated that, and then we looked at other countries, what they're doing around sustainable development goals, and tried to map that. I don't know if I don't have a link to that. Yeah, I would have shared that with you. But this sort of study can be replicated in every African country. So if you're interested in that, I can share that with you later.
Well, that's a really good point. I promised you we'd finish at 1, and I've failed you because we've gone 2 minutes past 1. But I'd like to draw it to a close. This is, as you can tell, it's kind of the start of a conversation here about how we diversify geoscience fast at scale, etc. And it's a conversation that we'll be carrying on, and we invite you to join us for that conversation. But in the meantime, thank you for turning up and listening to 5 very strange people that like rocks. And thank you to Kambada, to Munira, to Maria Angela, and to Hasina. Thank you very much for that.